thank you for sharing your stories and your experiences of our mother. It's so good to hear them. This is not how I wanted to start. Mom has been suffering for many years, and it's too easy to get caught up in that myopic view of her life, of her suffering, and being overwhelmed by those memories. Just reading your comments on Facebook, looking at all the old pictures, and talking over the last few days has touched me deeply, reawakening within me a deep knowledge of that mother I knew all those years. As I thought today about the eulogy, I've wrestled with an organizing theme. I could talk about Eleanor's many gifts, memories of our mother, faith, family, and friend. That fits. Then this morning, actually, I went down and Paul and Barbara's home, and Eastman, my grandson, and Mama's great-grandson, crawled over to me with a smile on his face, and he lifted up his hands for me to pick him up. And as I picked him up and my heart was full, I remembered my mother. Simple love, patient, kind, not self-seeking, wanting the absolute best for the other. That's what she was all about. Everything else falls into place when you start there. The summons to love is embedded in hundreds of situations in daily life every day. Mom heard the call to love, and she lived it as fully and as perfectly as she could. The impact of this is seen when we look at the fruits of her life. I look at each of her grandchildren, and I am humbled and inspired by their integrity and their passionate lives. After the wake yesterday, we went to Barbara and Paul's home to celebrate Sonia's 16th birthday. And I was so deeply grateful for the dedication that our family has for one another, our desire to accept one another, support, celebrate, and forgive one another. If the health of a tree can be known by the quality of its fruit, my mom was a healthy woman indeed. Faithful, high integrity, dedicated, passionate, loving, fun, and of pure heart. Not perfect, always wanting to talk and connect. That was our mother. Mom was an only child, and she grew up in an extended family in Brooklyn. She lived with her parents, her grandparents, and her mother's siblings, Signe and Walter. She was the princess of that family. And I think her strength was nurtured because she felt loved and supported there. She felt special. Her strength was nurtured through the commitment and dedication to one another. And I think she learned to hold any personal struggles of family close. Nothing would be gained to open it up or dwell on the challenges. My mother often said that one of the things she shared with my dad was that they both had a special relationship with their grandmothers. Indeed, the name my mom called out more often in her last weeks was More, the name she called her grandmother. That role, the role that my mother cherished most deeply, was the role of grandmother, as Mama. I know it was so hard for her to be separated by states and so many miles from each of her grandchildren. But honestly, I can never, ever remember Mom saying anything but proud and positive things about each of her grandchildren. She treasured them. She could go to concerts, piano recitals, soccer games. She was so happy. If she could play a game of dominoes or just sit and talk, she was satisfied. Some people I know can't wait until their grown children and grandchildren leave a visit, but not Mom. She could never have enough. Her family was so important to her. One of the ways Mom showed her love was through a deep gift of hospitality. Indeed, some of the words used by so many people remembering Mom are the words gracious, kind, and welcoming. Paul, Ruth, Kari, and I have so many memories of Sunday dinners growing up, with friends and family sharing meals on a regular basis, gathering of neighbors on the stoop of 67th Street or on the deck in the backyard of Briarcliff Manor. Mom knew how to make people feel welcome. And the line between family and friends were blurred, as the people in her life were all important. With a smile and an embrace, she was fulfilled both by what your friendship offered to her, as well as her ability to serve and love you. Mom had a beautiful and natural sense of mutuality. She knew how to receive as well as to give. Over the past 10 years or so, Mom has faced illness and decline, first with Dad, then with herself. It must have been so hard for her to lose the ability to fully manifest this gift of hospitality over the years. As she lost her independence, she was unable to graciously give as she had given for so many years. In many ways, my mom was a straight arrow. She had a conservative grounding in her Norwegian immigrant family and church. She had a naiveness and a purity to her. It would embarrass me as a teenager, but I grew to respect it because she was true to her values and her beliefs. This purity was blended with passion and strength that could be intimidating. Michael, our neighbor in Briarcliff, used 3 words to describe Mom yesterday: beautiful, kind, and tough. Indeed, when her sense of fairness, family, or faith was being challenged, she was a formidable opponent. Maybe we all saw a bit of that Eleanor too. And finally, and most importantly, the way Mom knew and expressed her love was through her worship and her love of God. Mom, Dad, and God were a team. They had a triangle engraved in their wedding bands, forever committed to remember that their relationship was bound with God. And they raised our family that way. Prayers before meals and bedtime, regular attendance and participation in church, knowing and living the 10 Commandments. Mom modeled for us the importance to not just have faith, but to live an active faith life. Zion Lutheran Church was the focal point of our lives growing up, and Mom taught Sunday school, led Bible studies, sang in choir, and Zion and Emmanuel here and her church in Hawley were all cornerstones of her life, and she used her gifts and talents of leadership in many ways in these congregations. Throughout her life, Mom had a desire to proclaim her faith, as we heard in the second reading, and she enjoyed leading Bible studies, ecumenical neighborhood Bible studies and groups at church. She loved to host gatherings of the secret Bible study from Zion, gathering to grow in faith, sing hymns together, and enjoy fellowship. She had a friend in Connecticut that she gathered to read the Bible with every day. And at the end of her life in Minnesota, she prayed daily for the women of Emmanuel who had gathered to study the Bible with her. And together, Mom and I read the daily devotion, Jesus is Calling, almost every day. She always told us that no matter what you do, even if you wash the floors, you do it in the service and praise of God. And she loved music. You cannot remember Mom without mentioning music. The Messiah, church choirs, piano, all ways to worship and praise God. Now, Mom was an only child, but I am so lucky to have 3 incredible siblings. Growing up, Paul, Kari, Ruth, and I all had unique relationships with our mom. Kari, as the youngest, naturally experienced a mother that was a bit more relaxed and with a bit more time. Kari was able to take trips with her parents, and most importantly, Kari says she learned to shop with Mom. I think the quote was, "Buy what you love and enjoy it." And of course, always stop for something to eat. I always sensed a real comforting closeness between Kari and Mom. Ruth, number 3 of 4 kids. When Mom turned 70, we put together a booklet, and Ruth said that she always felt Mom was the greatest mother in the world. What an awesome testament. Ruth speaks of knowing Mom's love and her dedication to family. Indeed, she always wanted the best for us. Ruth called Mom every single day. For how many years? I don't know. She was a comfort and stable companion for Mom, and I thank Mom for her. And Paul, the oldest and only son, you held a very special place in Mom's heart. I know that comes with many benefits. Believe me, I saw them. But I also know it has some burden. I don't think any of us ever wanted to disappoint Mom. We tried to make her proud and happy. Maneuvering all this when you are the apple of her eye has challenges, I know. Challenges that I don't know, but I respect. Paul, I've looked up to you and admired you my whole life, and I still do. We all have parts of Mom in us. This is a gift, and we can celebrate and reflect them back to one another as the years pass. I am so lucky to have incredible siblings, but also incredible in-laws. Mom loved you all dearly too. And over the last decade, all our families were blessed to have a special role in Mom's life. First in Virginia, as Mom and Dad stayed with Kari, Mark, Chris, and Beth. Then Paul, Barbara, Eric, Karen, and Sonia welcomed Mom into their home for 5 years. Then for close to 2 years, Ruth, Jay, Kristen, and Luke offered gracious and dedicated support to Mom in Connecticut. Sometime over these last 2 years, Mom told me that she didn't want to die at the facility she was living in Connecticut. Robert and I were blessed to have Mom move in with us and spend the last 10 plus years of her life in our home in Minnesota with Lauren, Matt, Daniel. And it was such a blessing to have her meet her great-grandson Easton and watch him grow. Mom suffered a lot at the end, but she refused to focus on this. And as frustrating as that could be at times, she always held out hope that she would reclaim her independence and be healed. She held on to her dignity and pride to the end. It was hard to see Mom suffer, but for years I told her that I thought she was courageous, not being free of fear, but being full of fear and still moving on. She was a woman of great courage. Over the last 10 months, Mom spoke continually of a desire to go home. She wanted to go home, where all those she knew and loved would be, where she would be in communion and meshed in love and in direct contact with all of you and her family and friends. This was her most deep desire, her continual yearning. I want to go home. At the very end of her life, as she was in day 6 of no liquids or food in home hospice, I thought she was coming to the end of her life. So I contacted my siblings early in the morning to let them know. But as she hung on throughout the day, constant in her shallow breathing, I connected again, naming her tenacity and her strong hold of life. And Kari offered a song that was in her heart and texted the words to us. Softly and tenderly Jesus is calling, calling for you and for me. See on the portals he's waiting and watching, watching for you and for me. Come home, come home, come home. You who are weary, come home. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling, O sinner, come home. When I saw that text, I went right up and got my hymn book, found the hymn, and I sang it to my mom. feeling the support and the connection of my whole family. With all the love in my heart, I sang all 3 verses, and then went back to verse 1 again. And I sang to her, come home, you who are weary, come home. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling, oh Eleanor, come home. After the song, I gave Mom a kiss on the forehead and stepped out of the room for just a couple of minutes. When I came back in, she had transitioned to the final stage of life. I offered her a prayer of commendation sent by Mark, marked the sign of cross on her forehead, and she died. She was at peace. Now, my dear mother, you are home in the embrace of God's incredible, pure, and boundless love. Rest in peace, Mom, and may God's perpetual light shine in you forever.